Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about trust, and I was thinking about two things that I find are the greatest obstacles to trust in my own personal life and experience. That first obstacle that I found is comparison or jealousy. When we start spending too much time looking at the blessings of others compared to ourselves, what they have and what we don't have, or trials. What did I do to deserve this? What did they do to deserve that? And saying it's just not fair. How come God is blessing them and he's not blessing me? And we start to trust that God has a plan for me because I'm too busy looking at his plan for other people. And the second obstacle, which I'm going to dwell on a little bit more, is vision. And I want to explain that a little bit more because I'm not just referring to a vision of success in regards to work or relationships, etc. There's also a vision that we have for ourselves of holiness that I think we as listeners and you as listeners might be more tempted towards. I have a specific vision for myself and what my path towards holiness would look like. And sometimes God surprises us. I just want to share a little story in regards to that, because sometimes we think that the more we suffer and the more that we offer and sacrifice for God, the holier we become. And that might not be God's plan for you. And we read about the saints and in the great tradition of the church, and it leads us to believe sometimes that we have to do these extraordinary things, no matter how many times we hear that it's in the little things, in order to be holy, in order to be God-like, and to follow his plan and his will for us. I was a religious for 10 years, actually. And the plan for me was to enter postulancy, then novitiate, then make my first vows, then my final vows, and then to offer my life for the world and for love of Christ in the convent. That was my plan. Well, this is obviously what happened. That's the reality of my life right now. Not what I had planned whatsoever. And again, I was there for over 10 years. And so I do feel like I spent half of my life in a vocation that God did call me to, but not forever. And the hardest thing for me, actually, in regards to trust, wasn't leaving the country and learning a new language and culture and learning religious life and embracing the challenges of fraternal life and material poverty and being far from my family. Obviously, I had struggles in trust because of that. But the greatest trial and trust for me was when I knew God was calling me somewhere else and it didn't fit in according to my plan and my vision of holiness. You're called somewhere else and 100% that God is calling you there. But there's all these temptations. Again, that comparison that sneaks in. There's so many other religious here who are going to be here until the moment they draw their last breath in these convent walls. How come I am being called out after 10 years? God, do you really have a greater plan for me than living here and dying here in service of you and of your church? Did I doubt that I was making the right decision? Did I struggle with knowing that God was going to have a greater plan for my holiness? Of course, 100%. And that's because of this struggle we have of letting go of our vision and trusting God, even if it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. If God is asking and calling me to something different than what I've been living my entire life, no matter how much determination I staked on that, I need to listen. Because God knows his plan for us. And sometimes it takes us by surprise. It could be on our deathbed that he calls us to something dramatically different, a perspective dramatically different. Mother Teresa said that I take what Jesus gives and I give what Jesus takes with a smile. And this is true holiness. It's looking at my life, my benedictions, my trials, whether they seem like good news or bad news, and just trusting and knowing that God is faithful. And that suffices.